Hey there folks, so today not going to be talking about liberators, something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about ESOPs and going to try to outline the problem with air-to-air missiles right now and talk about a couple of potential solutions that I would like SOE and the player base to look at trying to implement. So, right there, yeah, I got a little bit outskilled by pure air-to-air missiles. The rotary was damaged from before. But either way, I'm going to have two clips of just normal dogfights coming up, both of which I probably would have lost if my opponent would have been using air-to-air missiles. And then, moving on, I'm going to show a couple of clips on test server where the first couple rounds each time we're fighting just normal dogfight rotaries, and the people I'm fighting are 50% Genius and Tempa, who I would say in a normal fight we're fairly closely matched, and that shows. In the fights, we both get each other down pretty low. Typically, I just barely come out on top. But we're going to do a couple of those fights, and then we're going to alternate between my opponents having air-to-air missiles and me having air-to-air missiles and them not having it. And you're going to see that the fights turn out a little bit differently. But first of all, what's wrong with air-to-air missiles right now? One of the first problems that I have with it is that the reload on your missiles are much shorter than how long it takes flares to reload, which is one of the reasons why I don't actually run flares, I run fire suppression. Your flares right now, even maxed out, have a 25-second cooldown, as opposed to the, I would say 7.5 to 8 second realistic reload and refire time on air-to-air missiles. That means that really what flares do is they prolong the inevitable. You can dodge that first round, and then you're kind of in the same position you were before, where they're going to be able to kill you before your flares even come back on. So that's the first problem. Another problem is that air-to-air missiles, and really missiles in general in this game, have just absolutely ridiculous ability to track you. I'm going to link below to a different video showing this, but essentially, if you don't flare, once the missile has been fired, it's going to hit you 95% of the time. They'll follow you around trees, through the legs on biolabs and tech plants, and will even pull complete 90-degree turns around things, 180-degree turns right as someone passes you and fires them, and they're just going to hit you. There's no real way to dodge them. The final problem with them is that the lock-on time for Liberators and Galaxies is almost non-existent. If you're fighting a Liberator or a Galaxy with air-to-air missiles, you actually spend more time reloading than you do firing due to how quickly they lock. And this is a serious problem when you're in a Liberator because you're just constantly getting locked, you have no time to get away, and you can't really fight back against that.
That's fire.
Now, all of that being said, I'm not trying to say that air-to-air missiles are bad, that they shouldn't be in the game. The problem with them right now is how they function. They do serve a valuable role. They give newer pilots a chance to get damage down, and they serve as a way to essentially force a fight. I like that part about them. If you want to fight an opponent, you have air-to-airs, they can't run away from that. They need to turn around and fight you. But right now, even if they turn around to fight you, you're still going to be landing those missiles due to the fact that, again, you can't really dodge them, and they reload and refire much, much faster than the hard counter, which is flares. So, how do we go about fixing this problem? The first thing that needs to be done is that they need to unhook missiles from the matrix. They should not be able to follow you through the legs on buildings, through trees, and pull 90 and 180 degree turns around terrain. They should be following you in more of a straight line instead of predicting movement. If you lead them through a tight series of turns in between trees, realistically they should probably run into one of those trees. If someone fires it as they're going right past you, they don't need to pull a 180 degree turn and hit you. The second thing that needs to be addressed is the discrepancy between the reload and refire time on missiles and the reload time on the hard counter, which is flares. As was stated previously, flares have a reload time maxed out of 25 seconds, whereas air-to-air missiles have a realistic refire time of about 8 seconds. What that means is that you can fire off approximately 3 missiles after the flares fire without them having any chance to counter that. Now, what I would like to see is for the base reload time on flares being about 25 seconds, which you can lower down to about 15 seconds, maybe 12 and a half through certs. What this would essentially mean is that you could get about 1 air-to-air missile off in between the flares. Now, this may seem like it's a horrible nerf to it, but it's really not. It's putting missiles more into the role that they should be in as a way to get a little bit of extra damage on, but not something to allow you to win fights you wouldn't normally be able to win. If you're still horribly outmatched by the other pilot, that 1 missile in between isn't going to be enough to kill them before they can take you out. However, if it's a pretty close fight, it'll give you an advantage, and it will still allow you to get that first missile off in a fight if you chase someone down and they're not aware that you're there. This would bring air-to-air missiles more into the role that I would like to, and what I think a lot of other pilots would like to see them playing. So the last 2 improvements that I would like to see made are more of quality and life improvements than anything else. The first one would be to increase lock-on time on Liberators and Galaxies to more closely mimic that of the lock-on time on another ESF. ESFs in general, and especially lock-ons, are already incredibly effective at countering Liberators, and they really don't need that extra boost that an almost instantaneous lock will give them. So, really no reason for that, and it just makes it very annoying to fly Liberators against an ESF that has lock-ons. The second quality of life improvement would be to give pilots a simple indicator about whether they're getting locked by air-to-air missiles or ground-to-air. This would help pilots, and really especially newer pilots, to react more accurately to the threat that they are facing. If you're a new pilot, you probably have no concept of whether it's a ground-to-air or an air-to-air missile hitting you, which means that you're just going to try to run from it. However, that's not how you want to fight an air-to-air missile. You have to turn around and engage the person. Typically, I can tell whether something is air-to-air or ground-to-air based on where I am and what I've been getting hit with. However, I do remember when I was first learning to fly, I never knew. I basically assumed that it was ground-air missiles all the time and would just try to run away from it. And by that time, it's just too late. You get away from the first one, and there's 2 more already in the air following you, and there's all of your health gone. So I feel that this would help newer players especially have a lot better chance of reacting accordingly to the threat that they're facing, and have a little more of that ability to get around, fight an opponent, and learn from that fight, not just die.
You have to remember he's still a really good pilot. Like, so he could potentially still kill you, even though you have freaking lock-on spam.
Alright, so that's about all I've got balance-wise and ideas with air-to-air lock-ons. If you have any suggestions, anything I got wrong, or any other ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will try to address those concerns. I'm gonna let you watch the rest of these last couple of fights here. Before I do that though, one thing that is relevant to point out is that basically we're using air-to-air lock-ons right now in their least effective state, in a hover fight right at someone against a fairly competent pilot. In addition to the fact that we're trying to be careful to not actually kill each other, we're just trying to set each other on fire. So the person using the lock-ons is trying to get 2 off, and then very carefully hit them with rotary rounds to get them on fire so they can land, repair, and get back in the fight. If we were going for just straight out killing them as fast as possible, these fights would be even more one-sided.
Go and kill me. No, dude, use lock-on. Just fly the ascend. I'll flak turret.
Damn, I couldn't aim down. your lock-ons do so much freaking damage. Dude, this is stupid. Hello. Oh, what? No, no, no. Just ram into me.
You want to offer yourself on Amrish while we log off?